Hey, it's Andrew back here at BTO Range in Conroe, Texas, and we've gotten a lot of requests to do a video on this model, and we finally got the opportunity a couple of days ago to buy one of these guns, and I jumped at the chance to do it. We haven't even really gotten the end processing done on this gun yet, but this is a Remington Model 600 in 243, and very low production numbers on this rifle comparative to other Remington models, obviously, but it was only made for a couple of years in this configuration. There were some continuation models after that. So in the early 60s, Remington was attempting to come up with something to appeal to those hunters that were wanting something shorter and lighter and were gravitating to lever guns. Like the Winchester 94 and comparable lever guns, and they wanted a piece of that market. So they developed a short, lightweight bolt-action carbine that would be roughly equivalent in length and weight, and they got there with this little rifle here. And the benefit is it wouldn't be limited to those lever-action rifle cartridges that they had the Winchester and the Marlins had, right? So 30-30, things of that nature. They actually chambered this guy in full-size rifle calibers. Well, I say full-size, they're all short-action calibers, but they're Spitzer bullet 308 Winchester type caliber. So in 64, this was introduced. Now 64 for Winchester is when they really changed their production methods and materials in a lot of their models, including the 94. And Remington introduced this in 64 also. So you would think that the stars would be lining up for that to be a very successful gun. They didn't hit the same price point as the Winchester. I think 94 was about 15-20 bucks less at full MSRP than the Remington product. So folks would have to make the decision whether they wanted the bolt gun or the lever gun, or whether they needed more than what a 30-30 could produce for them. So the gun would end up, this particular model would end up going away. A lot of people say 67. There's been some reports from Remington, old Remington, not the current Remington, different company, but that they actually continue production into 1968 with some custom shop guns still being assembled in 69. But we have a little bolt action repeater here with an 18.5-inch barrel, and probably the thing that you notice the most about the Remington 600 is the ventilated rib that's attached to the barrel. Why would they need that? A lot of people think, or a lot of people think the reason for the ventilated rib, particularly on things like shotguns and what have you, is to help dissipate the heat. And I think that's marginal, if at all. The reason Remington did it is because the barrel profile on this gun is so narrow. It's such a lightweight barrel to reduce weight that it just looked odd. So they put that ventilated rib on there to kind of make it a little bit more appealing or a little bit more normalized as to what the front of the gun looked like, and not just a very super thin barrel, because people would equate that super thin barrel with an inherently inaccurate rifle. So they put the rib on there, one, to look cool, and two, to help with that perception of a super narrow barrel. Now, the rib on the gun is of the same material that Remington ended up producing on the XP100 and the nylon 66 stocks, that Zytel material. Remington at the time was owned by DuPont, and DuPont had that material in one of its products that it was offering. So Remington began incorporating that synthetic DuPont material into firearm production. So we see that in the nylon 66, which was a contemporary of this gun, and then obviously the XP100. Now the thing about the XP100, it came out a year earlier. It came out in 63. The single shot pistol. We've done a video on the XP100. It's been some time since we've done it. We may even repost that video coming up soon to be a companion video to this one. But it is a very similar, almost the same action in a handgun, a bolt action handgun. and that was in 63. So in 64, they just made it into a rifle, basically, with the 18.5-inch barrel and the vent rib. So initially, when it was introduced in standard calibers. We had it in 222, we had it in 243, we had it in 308, and it would eventually also be produced in 6mm Remington, 35 Remington, and then there were two Magnum calibers in the Model 600 Magnum. The 6.5 Remington Magnum, which is a 264 diameter bullet, that gun came out in 65, and then the 350 Remington Magnum came out in 1966. And that was a different gun. The 600 Magnum was a different gun. It still had the vent rib and all that, but it had a very striking two-color laminate wood stock that you could actually see for a ways. You could tell exactly what gun that was just from the stock pattern. It had a high polish DuPont urethane finish. It was a really striking gun in 6.5 Remington mag, 350 Remington, and 350 Remington mag. So during the production run of this gun, the Model 600, under 100,000 were produced. Around 94,000 of these rifles were produced across all calibers. And some obviously are rarer than others. The rarest one is the 223 Remington. Less than 300 of these were produced in 223 Remington. So that's a big money gun. If you should luck up on one of those, I mean, it would be unusual. Obviously, it's a super rare configuration in 223. So I think 227 of them were produced. 308 and 243 are the most common. This is a 243. So what happened to it, and then we'll get into the gun in just a second and figure out why it went away. In 1968, Remington was trying to reduce production cost, so they developed the Model 660. The Model 660, same action. They increased the barrel length to 20 inches. They increased the barrel diameter and did away with the vent rib. The vent rib, my guess is that, and I was alive in 68, but I probably wasn't paying attention to this. I was a pretty young person in 68. My guess is that it was a little too futuristic, I guess, or a little too abnormal looking, and it was putting people off. So they increased the barrel diameter and then deleted the vent rib in 68 and called it the Model 660. And they still had the Magnums in that as well. And then in 72, they did it again. They wanted to reduce production costs again. And then they went back to an 18.5-inch barrel with hardwood stocks instead of walnut. And it was called the Mohawk 600, still without the vent rib. So the only ones that have the vent rib are the true Model 600 Remington in all of its various calibers. So the XP100 was in line also. And common to that pistol is this action, including that bolt handle. You see that dogleg shaped bolt handle there. That carried over, or that's Remington had used that before. Remington used that before in the Model 30S pre-World War II sporter rifle based on the 1917 Enfield. And Remington did that for two reasons on this rifle. Now this is about, with the scope attached, it's about a 6.5 pound rifle. So in 308, and then particularly in the two Magnum calibers, recoil can get somewhat interesting. So that dogleg bolt handle positions that bolt knob further forward so that it doesn't smack your hand when you're shooting in recoil. That's the primary function of it. And Remington also touted the fact that it was really laid really close to the stock. So if you're hunting on horseback with a gun and a rifle scabbard, that bolt handle wouldn't catch on stuff like a traditional bolt action rifle bolt would. So it was a bit of a marketing thing with that. The bolt is, might as well clear it now while we're doing it. So let's move this out of the way. Look in here and see there's nothing in there. Great. So we see the bolt handle is flat here, right? So we have laying really flat against the stock, so we wouldn't have room for that to be a completely round bolt handle anyway. We have a 2-position safety right here with the safety all the way to the rear. It does lock the bolt closed. So the Remington 700 did that, the Remington 721, all that. And then later on, there would be a modification to where you could work the action with the safety in the safe position. So along with that same modification to the Model 700. The trigger system is very similar to the Model 700 and had the same issue that the Model 700 trigger did, as far as not so much people maladjusting the trigger, but people not keeping the gun clean, and the connecting lever inside the trigger would stick. So there's a couple things you need to look for when we're looking at Model 600s. Let's take it from that standpoint. The two things you see most often when you find a 600 is you find broken ventilated ribs, because they're plastic basically. And this floor plate, and it's not really a floor plate, it's not a hinge, it's just basically a cover. This is also plastic. So that over time will develop a bit of a sag to where it's pulled away from the stock. The bolts are still tight, but it's pulled away from the stock and can actually see daylight between the stock and this plastic part. So we've had some success in the past with the heat gun reforming this and making it lay flat again. The plastic ventilated rib, when it's broken, it's broken. It's just that's done for. But there are aftermarket metal ribs available, blued steel metal ribs, and there are aftermarket blued steel floor plate units for the 600. Heritage Arm, a company called Heritage Arms has them, and they may be available from some other places. I'm not sure where. So those are the two big things that you see the most often, and they do, both of those problems do damage the value of the gun. The rib more so than the floor plate, but they both look unsightly when you find them. So this is a walnut stock on this Model 600. Impress checkering, which is standard Remington from the 1960s. That's as it should be. There is a bit of a cottage industry, people going through and cutting the reversing this impress checkering with checkering tools and making it cut checkering. More functional, but not correct for the rifle. This scope on here is a Leupold M8 straight 4-power scope with a duplex reticle. Serial numbers on the side of the saddle on this scope, and there's no letter prefix, so we know the scope is pre-1974. So it is reasonable to believe that this scope was probably put on this rifle when the rifle was purchased or shortly thereafter, and has been on the rifle for 60 years. 60 years. This rifle is almost as old as me. So we just bought it, and we haven't really finished the end processing. One of the things that we do when we get used guns in is I have to get inside them and make sure they're right and clean them, which is probably why I don't work in a convent, because that wouldn't work. But we haven't done that to this gun yet, so it'll be a minute before we get that figured out. But we're not cut for a recoil pad here. So the thing we always talk about, right? Originality, scarcity, condition. Model 600, 3-year production run, fairly scarce gun. One of the more common calibers, 243 Winchester, but still overall a fairly scarce gun. Originality, we're perfectly happy with the originality of this gun. Nothing is aftermarket. Obviously, a scope is attached. Now, the sling swivel studs were not original to this gun. These early guns were not produced with the sling swivel studs, so that's a fairly common alteration. And that's an alteration, if it's done correctly, that doesn't really affect the value all that much, because it's hard to carry a rifle when you're hunting without a sling. So uh, it would be unusual to find, in my opinion, unusual to find the rifle without it. So now we look at condition, right? So we don't have any surface rust. Number one, the rib is not broken. The sights are present. The other thing you'll find is that people will lose this this front sight. Front sight is the same that Remington used on things like the Nylon 66, several of the Remington 22 models use this shark fin sight. The XP100 used it. So that's a fairly common sight. The rear sight's a little bit different because it has two threaded screws that screw to the rib through the rib itself. So that one's a little harder. And thankfully, when they mounted the scope, they didn't pull the rear sight. Then that got lost to time. This is an older Redfield base that has a flip-up aperture on the back. So that is all contemporary to the time the gun was made. So the originality, scarcity, and condition, we're really happy with this gun. The bore is great on it. So this would be pretty much maximum value for a 243 and a Model 600. So what is that maximum value? In the standard calibers, 650 to 700 is what we see these guns typically selling for on the auction sites. The Magnum calibers, the 600 Magnum, the 6.5 to 350 are a little bit higher, but then the rare calibers or the more uncommon calibers, 35 Remington, 6mm Remington, and certainly 223 are considerably higher. A 223, remember, less than 250 of them were produced, would be several $1,000s if it was original. So that's a no-brainer there. So as we get later in production and we get the guns without ribs, the Model 660 and then the Mohawk, they tend to go down in price. I never can figure this out. They go down in price from there. So we get down into the 450, 500 for the Mohawks in high condition. Again, unless there's something rare about the particular rifle that you're looking at. So the Model 600. Now, why did it not survive? A couple different reasons. At least the 600, Remington changed the barrel profile, and people by the 70s, when the Mohawk 600 was in production, the 700 was still a super strong rifle, and people that were getting a bolt action Remington rifle were getting the Model 700. So there just weren't enough sales to continue the production of the model. Now, there is a little bit of wonkiness with this rifle as far as getting the bolt out of it. It's not convenient at all. The latch to get the bolt out is actually inside the receiver, and you have to use a tool to get it out. So in order to get the bolt out, we have to open this up, and right here along the side, and I know you can't see it on camera, but trust me, it's on the back side of the bolt. There's a notch in the receiver. You can reach in and pull down on the bolt catch. You've got to get that bolt catch out of the way, and then you can get the bolt head out of it. So, you can get the bolt out of the receiver. So the inside of the bolt, or the bolt face, is standard Remington stuff. You've got a circular clipped-in extractor just like you do on the Model 700, and a plunger-style ejector just like you do on the Model 700. So there's a lot of similarity there in that regard. In fact, it's the exact same extractor that you would put into a Model 700. So with the rivet. So that's the Model 600 Remington. Super rifle, if you find them out in the wild, that's definitely a buy. If you can get them at the right price. It's a very usable rifle. There's nothing wrong with it. As far as the ability to shoot with it today, just don't expect to get really sub-minute of angle accuracy out of it over a long string of shots. Just from the barrel's got to heat up, it's going to walk a little bit on you. So, but for hunting accuracy, for whitetail deer hunting, this rifle in 243 or 308, it's kind of hard to beat. It's light and handy, and it's just, I've always enjoyed it. It's just a joy to shoot. So just real quick, how do I know when it was made? the barrel codes. And we'll try to get some still photo of this, but just like most Remington product, virtually all Remington products, except for a couple of years, 2000 and 2001, have a 2-letter date code, 2 or 3-letter date code, right here on the left side of the barrel ahead of the receiver. That indicates month and year of production. This particular one is PM, which is 6 of 65, June of 1965. So that's how we date it. The serial number on the Remington 600, there's not a serial number chart. You can't go look it up by serial number. And the current version of Remington doesn't have those records anyway, so they wouldn't be of much help. So it has to be by the barrel codes. So anyway, that's the Model 600. If you like what we're doing, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, let us know. We try, and we hear your requests for do a video on this model or that model. It's just a matter of getting a this model or that model to do the video on, but we definitely try to do that. And we were proud to be able to get this little gun in the shop. So now we've just got to clean it up, go through it, and I'm not 100% sure we're going to sell it. This may have to go home with me. We'll have to see. Thanks, and we'll see you on the next one.